I'm going to record it. Okay, so welcome, welcome, welcome. Good morning, Facebook. And good morning, James. Thompkins is my
Good
guest
morning.
today.
Good morning
So,
to
for
you and your
those of
audience.
you, say that again.
I said good morning to you and your audience.
Yes, good morning, good morning. And so I just wanted to kind of let people know who I am. For those of you that don't know who I am, my name is Jenis Walters and I am with Jenisys Solutions Type 2 Diabetes. I am a long term type 2 diabetic, had it for over 30 years and actually had to overcome some medical challenges. And with that, was able to come to the conclusion that, you know what, this thing can be managed. It doesn't have to manage you. So, my goal and my mission now is to change hearts and minds one diabetic at a time. Okay, and so James, I came across from another group, a mutual group that we're both in, and James, I was just so struck by his story and by his transformation, both. And so reached out to him and asked him if he would be willing to or interested in telling his story on this platform so that others could kind of understand exactly what he did, how he transformed his mind, his body, and everything that he does in terms of his diabetes. And I can't wait to get him on and have him introduce himself, and then we can get started with his story because it's a very impactful, amazing story. So, James, welcome. And I just want you to
Thank
go
you.
ahead and introduce yourself. And I'm going to be asking you some questions so that you can let our audience know exactly what you did because what you did
Okay.
was nothing short of amazing. Nothing
Okay.
short of
Thank you.
amazing.
And I want to thank you for
So,
having me. I usually don't do interviews or anything like that because sometimes I get so passionate that I kind of lose control, but I'm going to try to maintain my composure and because it's important. And that's why I agreed to do it because, health is so important. Of course, my name is James Tompkins, and I'll briefly go over my story. Um, I've always I'm not going to say that I've always been heavy, but when I got out of the military, I began a process where I would put on 5 to 10 pounds every year. And I've
gotcha.
been out of the military for almost 40 years. So I got up as high as about 315 in 2017. And I went to the doctor, and the doctor told me that I was pre diabetic. And, I was like a lot of people. I just didn't want to, I was in denial. And with weight, there's a different kind of denial. It's really interesting to me because I used to really drink a lot and I had no problem admitting that I was drinking too much, so I stopped drinking. But with the weight, it was different. And the doctor told me I was pre-diabetic and my A1C was 5.5. But I didn't listen to her. This was in about 2017. I didn't listen
Okay.
to anything she said. I was probably around 315 at that time. And I just made up my mind that I was going to keep doing exactly what I was doing. I'm 6'2", so I'm rather tall. And I could walk around. At the time, I thought that I didn't look as big as I was because of my height. And that was part of the denial, too. And you've seen the picture with my belly. I had this huge gut. And when in that picture, I was about 286 to 289. And somehow just through the denial, I didn't see that. And I was carrying it around for years. But the doctor told me that my A1C was 5.5. I didn't know what that was. I didn't
Right.
care really, honestly, about anything, as far as trying to control what I was putting in my mouth. I just continued to eat whatever it is I wanted to eat. And I kind of settled in at about 286. 286 to 289 was my weight for years. And part of that denial, this is really interesting, is that I never admitted that I was over 279. And and looking back now that I've lost like 80 pounds, it's kind of silly how every license that I would get over the last decade or two, I would always put my weight at 276 or 279. It was always the same thing. And I was 315, 16 pounds. But in my mind, I convinced myself that I was 276, which is still rather large.
Yeah.
So it took, I was really stuck in that denial for a long time until this year. In August, I went to my doctor and I told my doctor I needed to set up a colonoscopy. I had a colonoscopy 4 years ago, and they found two polyps, and they removed those polyps and said, well, you better come back in 3 years because my mother died of colon cancer. I said,
Oh,
okay.
wow.
So
Yeah.
4 years went by. I went into the doctor. I said, I better take care of this. And of course, the doctor said, well, we need to do some blood work on you. And at that time, I was probably 288 in August.
Uh-huh.
Uh, and I said, okay. So I went in August, got the blood work. It took her a month to call me back. And I travel. I don't work a traditional job, so I just travel all the time. And because of that travel, it was hard for me to get in. And she wouldn't tell me over the phone. She wanted to sit down with me. And in September the 17th, she sat me down and said, you have diabetes, and you're not pre-diabetic anymore. You actually have diabetes, and your A1C is 7.7. And
Wow.
honestly, because I was in denial, I was really shocked. And it's crazy because I was like a donut away from 300 pounds. So you would think, well, why are you in shock? But
Right.
that's how deep that denial was. So when I left her office, well, let me tell you this first. And if you want to interject, you could just go right
No,
ahead.
I'm enwrapped in your
Okay.
story right now.
Okay. So I sat there listening to her, and I was just shocked. I believed her. I didn't doubt her because she had the science. She had the results from the blood work. So I knew that she was telling me a fact and not just, you're this, you're going to be that if you don't do this.
Right.
And she automatically wanted to put me on metformin. Well, my mother was diabetic, so I knew a little bit about metformin. And because I travel and I didn't want my schedule to be interrupted, I said, Doc, listen, I'm not going to get on any medicine. I said, I'll make a deal with you. I'll come back in 90 days from now, and I'll weigh anywhere between 190 and 200 pounds. And at that time, remember, I was like 286 or
Right.
289, between 286 and 289. And she kind of looked at me and said, okay. And you could tell
She
that's
wasn't
that.
wasn't buying it.
No, it's easy to say that. And I understand why doctors do that. But she did agree. And when I left her office, I was just determined to investigate, some of the changes that I could make to lose a substantial amount of weight as healthy as I possibly could. And she didn't give me the metformin at the visit, but a week later, a bottle of metformin shows up. So she didn't believe me, and she sent the
She didn't
metformin
believe
in.
you.
No, she sent it anyway, and I didn't take it, but she still sent it covering her butt just in case. So I get that. I understand. I'm not mad at her. And I just went about changing really how I approach food because I was no longer in denial. And because there was that scientific basis, I couldn't, that overcame my ego and denial at the time. And I said, I have to take care of this because the moment I came down with when she told me I had diabetes, she started making all of these doctor visits and hospital visits, and referring you to a liver specialist. And I actually had liver inflammation too, along with the diabetes, and that's common, but not everybody gets that. But I had it. I had what they call a fatty liver, and it wasn't the beginning stages of fatty liver. It was the next stage where the inflammation had already set in. So I had to go get an ultrasound. And it was just one doctor visit after another. And then they sent me to a dietitian, and they had me on this roller coaster from day one. And because of my travel schedule with my wife, I said, I can't do this. I'm not going to be one of these people that go in and visiting doctors every week or twice a week, trying, to get my diabetes under control. So I made a conscious decision that I was gonna go. Well, I don't consider it extreme, but a lot of people do. I don't consider what I did extreme, but so I told myself, you will lose this weight. And
Mm.
did some research and found out that a loss of 35 pounds will most of the time get your blood sugar in order, right? Most of the time you can do away or control your diabetes if you lose 35 pounds. So that wasn't the goal. 35 pounds wasn't the goal. The goal was to lose about 90 pounds. And the reason I chose to lose so much weight was because I wanted to finish it off. I didn't want to lose increments where I would have to go back and forth to the doctor. I wanted to
Right.
lose so much weight that it it got under control, and all I had to do was maintain that control. So
Hmm.
for me personally, it became about, okay, let's knock this out as fast as I can. And it was completely different than what the dietitians were telling me and what the doctor was telling me. They were telling me, well, your weight is important. However, let's concentrate on your sugar intake, your blood sugar levels, and things like that, which I understood that. But at the same time, I was like, well, if I can get rid of this controlling my weight, then let me do that. Let me put the emphasis on that, and then
Right.
we'll see if that works. If that works, then I've got control and I'll just maintain that control. If that
Got it.
doesn't work, then we'll cross that bridge when we get to
When
it.
you get to it. Got it.
And so that's how I approached it. And over the last 3.5 months, you reached out to me about a month ago, and I said, well, let me finish what I call the protocol. So over the last three and a half, just short of 3.5 months, I lost a total of about 80 pounds. I still
Wow.
have about 15 pounds to go so that my BMI falls within that, what they consider the proper range, which is like
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
24.9. So
Okay.
I've sort of continued the protocol for myself personally until I drop another 14 or 15 pounds. And that'll put me right where I need to be as far as my BMI. And then
Uh-huh.
what I'll do, it'll switch. It'll be all about maintaining that weight, keeping all the other, what I call indicators, metrics, in line, and make sure that they were where they need to be. So that's
Got
my
it.
story in a nutshell. And I've been blessed enough and fortunate enough to do that.
So I would like to talk to you about the mindset piece because it sounds like you just knew exactly what it is that you wanted to do. You knew
Mhm.
how you were going to do it. Did you do any pre kind of investigating, or how did you get to that particular mindset? Because it takes people a long time to get to just the mindset piece.
And I want to say this because what happens when I talk to people about my weight, because they see me now, they didn't know me when I weighed like 315 pounds or 290 pounds, like in that picture. They see
Right.
me for who I am in my weight now. But 3 months ago, I was literally a donut away from 300 pounds 3 months ago. So
Wow.
when it comes to weight, I still remember being almost 300 pounds. To me, I'm in my mind, in a way, nothing's changed. I just took off the weight, but my mind still remembers when I was almost 300 pounds back in September. So
Wow.
the first thing that I did was to accept the fact that I had diabetes. And I didn't even know how serious it was when she told me that, because diabetes is treated like a chronic disease where
It
you're
is.
going to be okay. We'll give you some medicine. You can keep eating what you've been eating, slow down on your sugar and exercise. So it's become like a chronic thing. And then to me, like I said, I just didn't want to be part of that. I wanted to finish it, kill it, so that I didn't have to keep going to the doctors. And I just didn't want to do that because honestly, I go to Miami every month for like a week or two from October all the way to February or March.
Oh,
So
wow.
when she told me in September that I had diabetes, I couldn't go to Miami for that took out my September trip to Miami, October, November. And once I lost the weight, I went a couple of weeks ago. So that sort of upended my lifestyle, right? And
Wow.
I knew that if I didn't change, that this was the way it was going to be. I was going to meet a whole lot of doctors. They were going to manage my disease chronically, right? I was probably going to have to meet even more doctors and clinics, and I just didn't want to do that. So my
Yeah.
mindset was, I need to do whatever it takes to remove myself from that process of sitting down with these doctors. And I don't have anything against doctors, but sometimes they look at things, well, all the time they look at things differently than I do.
Right.
And that's not shade or hate towards doctors. They've just been trained a certain way. And
Right.
that's how they do their medicine. I knew that if I changed my weight, if I reduced my weight, and they kept telling me, well, the one thing that they said that was honest, well, if you lose some weight, you can control your diabetes. And they hate to say you can get rid of diabetes, but they can say, well, you can control it. And in my mind, I was like, well, if my blood sugar and all my metrics are okay, well, then I don't have diabetes. Now, it's like an alcoholic, where they'll say
Right,
you're always an alcoholic. While I was an
right,
alcoholic
right.
when I was 20 years old. And I took part of that mindset that I had when I stopped drinking. I just went cold turkey. I did the same thing with diabetes. So I approached it the same way I did when I stopped drinking. And I stopped drinking in 1986, so it's been a long time.
Okay.
But I took that same method and approached diabetes and my weight loss with that same, concentration, that this is something that you have to do, because if not, it's going to wreck your life. And that's how I approached it. And in my mind, and I want to talk to everyone about the power of visualization, right?
Okay, let's
Because
talk about that.
it's important. So from the day that I started this process, this protocol, I already saw myself at 190 pounds. I actually bought clothes, two sizes too big. I was a 48. So I was crazy fat. And I know that there are listeners who are over 48, and that's no shade or insult, because 48 is big. And
Right,
anything over any probably about 40, you need to lose some weight. So
right.
I'm not throwing shade or insulting people who wear 40 or above, but I was 48 and I started buying 38s when I was 48, because I
So
knew
you
that
actually bought the clothes ahead of time?
I did. I did. Because that's the power of visualization, because I knew that I was going to get down to that weight. There wasn't any room for that not happening. So I just bought a bunch of clothes, and I did a lot of things already assuming that I was going to be successful on the process of losing weight. And then I got so wrapped up in that process that I just did whatever it took to lose the weight. And now I'm at literally at a 36. So I've actually lost a couple more inches than from when I put that video up. So I'm going to really stop at around 34 or 32. When I drop another 15 pounds, that'll probably take me to 32. And
Got it.
I want everyone to understand that I'm not doing it because I want to get into a size 32 pants again. It's just that the waist, getting down to that size is a byproduct of losing the weight. So for me, it's all about getting down to 190 to 194 so that my BMI numbers can come down and be where they need to be. So
Gotcha.
I'll have it fully under control at 190 to 194 pounds.
So what I'd like to talk about then is, what did you eat? What kinds of things did you eat when you were heaviest? What was your favorite
Oh,
go-to? What was your comfort food? How did you get to the
mm.
315, 288? Well, how did you get to that? What were you
That's,
eating?
you know what? I mean, I'm going to be honest with you, because that's the best policy. I literally ate everything and anything I wanted to eat. And I was very bold, and I was very arrogant about it. I would tell you, anyone, I'm gonna eat whatever the hell I want to eat, excuse my language. And I would tell
Yeah.
you that. And ice cream, cake, I would go to bed with ice cream. I would wake up with sugar and my coffee cream. My wife has been trying to get me to lose weight for 30 some years. I would literally put the coffee creamer, the non-dairy coffee creamer, half of my cup would be non-dairy coffee creamer.
What?
Yes, every single day. And sometimes I would have two cups. And when I was at my heaviest, I used to drink 5 cups of coffee every single day. And I would have a half of it would be the cream. And there's a lot of hidden sugars, as you know, in that coffee cream and sauces and things like that. But I would go to bed with ice cream and cake. I would wake up with sugar and donuts. And then throughout the day, I would eat literally whatever I wanted to eat. I had no limits on what I would eat, absolutely none. I would
Wow.
eat whatever. The calories didn't matter, the carbohydrates didn't matter, the protein didn't matter, the fat didn't matter, nothing mattered. I was very arrogant in the way that I approach food. Very,
So let
very.
me ask you this. So, you know how some of us like have a sweet tooth and some of us don't prefer
Mhm,
the sweet, we prefer the savory. What is
mhm.
your favorite, or is both your favorite?
Everything. I mean, I was out of control, and I hate to bring up the fact I've accepted the fact that I have an addictive personality. So when I was young and I used to drink, I would drink. I could never drink two shots. You know, people go out and drink two shots.
Yeah.
I would have to drink at least a fifth, which is they don't use say call them fifths anymore, but I would have to drink the whole bottle. That's what I had to drink in my mind. I had to drink at least one bottle, right?
Wow.
And so that's how I used when I was drunk. That's how I used to drink, and everybody around me did the same thing. So we created a circle of people who had the same type behavior, and that's common. Whether it's drinking, whether it's bad behavior, whether it's eating, uh, drunks usually have other drunks as friends. Uh, Obese people usually have other obese people as friends until they become more obese than all their friends. So
Gotcha.
that was true for me. And that carried over into everything that I did in my life, how I was really reckless with my bad behaviors. Now, because I have an addictive personality, that's helped me with my relationships. I've been married for almost 40 years. I was determined that my kids would go to college and finish college. Both of my sons did that. So I was able to use my addictive personality in ways that benefited me, but in some of the destructive behavior that I had, it was tearing me down. And it was the same thing with food. Food was one of those things that I literally had no bounds whatsoever. I would eat whatever I wanted to eat. I was so out of control. I would go to any restaurant. I would eat. If I was hungry after that first meal, I would get another meal. I stopped going to BJ's because one day they didn't give me enough green beans. And because the pork chop was so small, I was insulted. And I told the waitress, I said, "What are you guys trying to put me on a diet or something?" And she laughed, but I was serious. And I ordered another plate. So I had two plates, right? Because I was insulted by how small the portions were. And I told my wife we will never come here again. And we have never been back there again. So that's how out of control I was when I was 300. We're going to say 300 because the most I've weighed was about 316. My
Hmm.
walk around weight was about 286 to 289, and that's what I was 3 months ago. So I'm going to say average it out to about 300 to make it easy.
300.
So when I was 300 pounds 3 months ago, I would eat whatever I wanted to eat. And
Gotcha.
I would eat four apple turnovers. I would buy them telling myself, well, I'm only going to eat two, but I would eat
Uh-huh.
all four. And then I would go buy more. I would drink one of those large coffee creamers. Every 3, 4 days, I had to buy another one. Right.
Really?
So I
So,
was,
James, I mean, that really is interesting because the way you turned it around, you said you used that same kind of mindset to change that kind of pattern of behavior. My question is, has that mindset or has the way you approach food or think about food totally done a 180? Because now that you wouldn't go back to BJ's, would you go back today now because you're thinking differently
oh,
about how you
absolutely.
felt about it?
Absolutely. And one of the things that trips people out, and I've got pictures of this, I went to Cheesecake Factory on this whole protocol over the last 3 months. I didn't stop going to restaurants. I didn't stop going to Cheesecake Factory. I
That's
didn't
good to
stop
know.
going to restaurants or going out with my wife. So I didn't want my addiction to alter the way some of the things that I enjoyed in life. So
Right.
what I did do though, when I went out to the restaurant, I knew exactly how many calories I was putting in my mouth, right? And so I said, well, I can't eat all of it right now, so I can only eat half of it, and then I'll have to eat the other half tomorrow, right? So I didn't change some of the things that I did. I just changed how much I was putting in my body, right?
So the
Uh,
portion sizes.
the portion size. So I went from ordering two plates to ordering one plate and only eating half of that plate. So
Wow.
that's how I approached that. And what I did was I went with the first couple of months, I went with a caloric deficit. and everybody's going to have a different caloric deficit. And I'm not a doctor, so I don't want to say anything that can be misconstrued as being
Okay.
advice, medical advice. But I
Okay.
just went with a caloric deficit. Your body's going to burn 1,800 calories a day. So I just didn't put 1,800 calories in my body every day. So I was running a deficit for the first couple of months, and I didn't do any exercise or anything. I just watched what I ate. I really cut out the carbs and the sugar. I replaced that with 800 calories a day, and I really tried to put 800 calories in the best food that I could possibly eat for 800 calories, right?
So then give us an example of what 800 calories looks like. What would you
Oh,
typically
oh,
do?
absolutely. So when people hear that, they automatically think, "Damn, excuse my language." They automatically think, "Well, that's not a lot." Well,
Yeah.
for 800 calories, you can have a couple of boiled eggs, a couple
Okay.
of slices of turkey bacon. That's right around 100 and some calories. For lunch, you can do, one of those packets of tuna, two crackers. That's about 100 and something. And then for dinner, you can have, a chicken breast. I eat greens. If you don't eat greens, you can replace that with spinach.
Uh-huh.
That's less than 350 calories. And then that would be my day. And then I would do that for, like I said, that'll fill you up if you space that out over the course of a day. That'll fill you up. You'll be hungry because you're used to eating, like I was eating probably 5,000 calories a day. You'll in the beginning you'll feel like you're not getting enough food, but after about 2 or 3 weeks you start to get used to it. The easiest thing to do is to eat the same thing every day. But what happens is people get bored with that, and then they
Yeah.
start, saying, "Well, I'll just add this," and then that's an extra 100 calories or 200 calories. And then before they know it, they're back at 3,000 calories. They no longer are running a deficit, and they're slowly putting the weight back on. So you have
Gotcha.
to really, whatever your caloric deficit is, you have to commit yourself to that. And, like I said, I just did 800 because I wanted to take the weight off fast. If you
Gotcha.
want to take the weight off slow, you just, maybe do 1,000 for 4 months or something like that. But you have to commit yourself to that process, and you have to let go of some of your bad habits, and you can't cheat. We all like to cheat as obese people. I mean, the only thing I didn't do when I was 300 pounds was I didn't cheat. I just didn't give a damn. But since I started the protocol, in the beginning, I would get the sweet tooth at night. So what I did for that is I would get some sugar-free Jello, and those are 10 calories. And I would, because I was still dealing through my addiction, I would start with one, and then I would tell myself, "Well, I'm still hungry." So I said, "Well, I'm gonna eat one more," and then I would
Uh,
eat two. But I never went past two.
got
And then the
it.
second month, I said I have to wean myself off of sugar free because, as you know, there's sugar alternatives that still raise your blood sugar level. So it might say sugar free, but it's still going to have an effect on your blood sugar. And remember that the whole the whole program was centered around me controlling my blood sugar, my diabetes. So you have to watch some of the sugar-free products that you eat too.
Well, what kinds of sugar alternatives would you use or would you turn to? And then I want to come back to the
Well,
calorie thing because I'm curious to know how you knew how much calories were in certain kinds of foods. Did you have a calculator?
well, Google
So
search will tell you everything. They have these apps that tell you how many calories are in literally everything. A pat of butter is 35 to 50 calories. So
okay.
if you're frying your eggs, and this is important, you can use a pat of butter. That's a little square for people who don't know. That's
Yeah.
that's 35 to 50. So I would say with 50. I would always go with the highest number so I didn't have to, I could just settle it. And if I'm gonna fry me some eggs, I would use one pat of butter, and I
Uh-huh.
would eat 1 to 2 eggs. Each egg is, I want to say, 39 to 50 calories or something like that.
But
So
you
I
remember all
always
this stuff. You
well,
remember
I would
it.
write it down. So in the beginning, you can just get a piece of scratch paper, and
Okay, got it.
once you do it enough, it's already in your mind. So
Gotcha.
you already know how many calories you're putting in you before you put them in you. So you're like, well,
Gotcha.
for breakfast, I'm going to have some oatmeal and maybe some blueberries. That's going to be about 180 calories. Or the next day, you might say, well, I'm going to have a boiled egg. and I'm going to stay away from bread, and I'm just going to have one slice of turkey bacon. That's 30 calories. So that's about 110 calories. So that'll hold you to your midday snack. And so your midday
Mm,
snack might be 120 calories. That's one packet of the tuna, and two
mhm.
crackers out of those little Nabisco crackers, just two.
Yes.
That's going to put you at 100 calories. So with breakfast and lunch, you're sitting right at about 220 calories. So what that
Wow.
means is for dinner, and you want to have your dinner, I know a lot of people work, you want to have your dinner as early as possible. Uh,
Hmm.
but for dinner, you still got like 600 calories you can eat. And if you keep it lean with like chicken breast or fish and veggies, you're going to have that's a lot of food. You're not going to be able to eat all of that food. And that'll
Mm.
sustain you, and you'll still have a lot of room left. So you can still have one or two jellos, the 10
For
calorie
you,
jello.
for a
And
night snack.
that'll put you at about 600 calories for the day, which is less than 800. So, I had a hard time with soda. And you asked me, how did I know which sugar
Which,
alternatives would affect
yes.
my blood sugar levels? Well, that
Right.
was really by trial and error, because I would take my blood sugar levels after
Ah,
I would eat, right? The fasting and non-fasting. And what I noticed is when I was drinking like vitamin water, which has 0 calories, my
mm-hmm.
blood sugar would still spike. It still wouldn't spike beyond 177, but I
Right.
I was determined to go with the low end at 140 and below 2 hours after eating.
Got it.
So I would just deduct things from my sort of
Your
my
menu.
weapons, and I would say,
Yeah.
well, I can't eat that because whatever that sugar alternative is, it's still affecting my blood sugar levels. And so
Got
I
it.
got on Diet Coke, the Diet Sugar, what's it called, the Coke Zero Sugar, and I
Yeah.
noticed that didn't affect my blood sugar levels at all. So whatever they're using, it didn't affect my blood sugar level. So then I said, well, I'll stick with this. And I just left Gatorade affected my blood sugar,
Okay.
vitamin water affected my blood sugar, and everybody's different. So some people, they might not be able to drink the Diet Coke, but they
Got
can
it.
drink the Gatorade and replace some of their electrolytes and things like that.
Right.
If you're not exercising, there's no real need to replace your electrolytes if you're just, taking it easy. And for me, the first 2 months, I made up my mind that I wasn't going to do anything strenuous. I was going to do as little as possible and really maximize that caloric deficit. And the first 2 months, I lost 30 pounds each month. And I
Wow.
fasted in the past, and I actually lost
Hold on one
more
second.
weight.
I've got somebody knocking the door. Let me just
Mhm.
pause this. I'm going to pause that. Okay. So you were saying?
I was just saying that everybody has to really do it by trial of error. The best way to do it is by checking your blood sugar, and that'll
Yep.
tell you exactly what works for you as an individual and what doesn't. And when something
Exactly.
doesn't work, you have to let it go, no matter how much you like it. I mean, I like banana pudding, but I don't eat banana pudding anymore right now. And so with the protocol, the first 2 months, and every month I added something different. So the first month it was all 800 calories caloric restriction. The second
Uh-huh.
month it was 800 calories caloric restriction. And then I added a couple of different things to it to sort of break
Got
up
it.
the monotony. And then the
Uh-huh.
third month I just did really light exercise and walking and things like that.
The
And
walking.
now I'm
Okay.
going into the fourth month. In the fourth month, because I still need to lose 15 pounds, I'm going to increase my exercise and also increase my caloric intake to 1,000,
Uh-huh.
which is still a deficit because I'm exercising more. But
Got
I still need to lose another 15 pounds. And this is what I tell people, and I know this helped me a lot.
you. Mm-hmm.
Once you get control over your weight, then you can really start to increase your caloric intake and start to include some of the things that you really enjoyed within moderation, right?
Right.
So
Right.
if you like, I mean, I used to go to Cheesecake Factory and blow it up and get a big
I
old piece
bet.
of carrot cake. Carrot cake, 1,600 calories. So I would get a piece, I would eat a 2,000 calorie meal and then top it off with a 1,600 calorie cheesecake, carrot cake, and two or three Coca-Cola, regular Coca-Colas. So I was killing like 4,000 calories at one time at Cheesecake Factory.
Wow.
And when I get my weight down to 190, I'm going to fluctuate between 190 and 195. And what I
Uh-huh.
can do is increase my caloric intake. And maybe when I go to Cheesecake Factory, maybe I can have half a slice of cake. You understand what I'm saying?
Gotcha.
So you can
Yes.
slowly, once you gain control over your weight, you can slowly start to include some of the things that you feel like made you fat. Not, you'll have that understanding. Well, it wasn't necessarily the slice of cake. It was just the slice of cake was one part of a
Combination of all the
4,000 calorie meal.
exactly. So that's some of the things. Actually, what you're talking about are some of the things that I talk to my clients about. That you got to establish the baselines. Once
Mm-hmm.
you establish the baselines, and in order to do that, you have to monitor your sugar after every single meal, 2 hours,
Mm-hmm.
and then you need to be writing it down. And you also need to be
Absolutely.
writing down what the sugar is, and then you can
Mm-hmm.
actually begin to see really quickly what it is that spikes your sugar and what it is that doesn't. And so that's how I kind of counsel and encourage my folks is that you have to establish those baselines, and like you say, once it's
Mm-hmm.
under control and once you've gotten it to the point where your sugars are now kind of normal and your A1C is where it needs to be, then you can
Mm-hmm.
slowly, like you say, reintroduce some things that you
Mm-hmm.
like. So it's not
Mm-hmm.
like you're depriving yourself. You're still being able to enjoy, but within moderation.
Absolutely. You're gaining
Absolutely.
control over your body. And
Exactly.
as long as you convince yourself, once you have that control, that it has to become a lifestyle. It
It
doesn't have
does.
to be a hard charging lifestyle. It could be as simple as once you may get your weight down, and
Uh-huh.
I would encourage everyone to get in the proper BMI. Once
Yeah.
you do that, then if you did it slowly, you just keep doing it slowly. So if that includes a 1 mile a day walk, will you convince yourself that this is what I'm going to do every day? And if you
Got
say,
it.
well, I would like to increase, my calories, you have to offset that with more exercise,
Got
right?
it.
So you
So,
have to say, well, I want to increase from where I'm at another 400 calories for dessert. Well, then
uh-huh.
you need to take that off on your exercise too.
Oh yeah.
And
Oh
then
yeah.
you just have to balance. It becomes sort of the yin and the yang, the balancing of your weight and your activity. How much is coming in? How much is
Uh-huh.
going
How much
out?
is going out?
Yeah. And if you don't stop, what happens, and people freak out when I tell them this, once you reach a certain level, you have to eat just to maintain that healthy weight, because if not, you'll continue to go down. If I don't increase my calories, I'll
Uh-huh.
continue to drop weight. It'll just be at a slower pace, but I won't be able to maintain a healthy weight. So it's on
Right.
both ends. It's on
Right.
the bottom and the top. So you
And
want
the
to you
top.
want to balance that. And I know a lot of people are too young to remember Karen Carpenter, who stopped eating, and
And
she killed herself. So
yeah,
anorexia. So you don't want to go allow your addictive personality to go from one extreme to the other,
to the other.
because it's
Exactly
just as
right.
dangerous if you don't weigh enough as it is if you weigh too much. So it's that
Exactly.
balance.
Exactly right. So I
Mhm.
want to know, when you were at your heaviest, did you experience any of the symptoms that typical diabetics
No,
experienced? Did you get the
no.
thirstiness? Did you get none of that?
Oh, you know what? I'm so happy that you asked that question, because I'm still working my way through the denial. I would get fatigued, right?
Ah,
I
yep.
would I would get thirsty. I would, but I would just say, the denial was so thick. I wasn't really doing anything. That's why I weighed 300 pounds. But I would
Uh-huh.
convince myself that I had to maintain a certain whatever. So I was just thirsty, right? Without
Yeah.
even questioning whether or not that I had convinced myself that I didn't have diabetes. And
Wow.
the same way that I was able to lose the weight, that denial was just as thick as, my addiction. I was addicted to denial. So I was willing to overlook anything that had to do with me having diabetes.
Mm.
And I did have some of the symptoms, and even some of the symptoms, and I don't want to get graphic on here, but erectile dysfunction is a symptom of diabetes. And
Gotcha.
as you get older, as a man, as and I do have an ego, and I am a very confident man. Uh, I always felt like I was the man, and I've been married a long time, and I'm not boasting about my libido or anything, but I started to notice some changes in that department. And what I did was, rather than saying, maybe you have diabetes, I would say, maybe you're getting older. It's normal for
Mm,
someone. I'll be 57 in a couple of weeks. So
gotcha.
as I got into my 50s, I did notice that my libido wasn't, and my stamina wasn't what it used to be. And I just chalked that up to just getting older, and I
Wow.
didn't even think about, well, maybe this is diabetes. And I would have the pain in my feet. I would have all
So
these
you would have
symptoms.
that too? You had those too?
I
The
had those,
neuropathy?
but it was
Wow.
intermediate. So it was like I would have it, then I wouldn't have it for several months, right?
Got it.
And
Got
my
it.
A1C was 7.7, so that's not on the high extreme, but
Right.
it's certainly diabetes. So I would
Yes.
have that. And I'll tell you another big one. This is huge, and I still was in denial. When you have liver inflammation, it's called
Mm-hmm.
NASH. You know what
Mm-hmm.
NASH is. When you
Uh-huh.
have inflammation, that liver disease, you're going to get some pain right here. You're going to have,
On the
it's going to
side.
be like an aching pain, and every once in a while you might get a sharp pain. And the
Uh-huh.
liver is a big organ. So it's going to be from here all the way up into your chest. And that pain can radiate into your chest, make you think it's your lungs. But that's just that inflammation and that fat clogging out your liver, affecting
Wow.
your liver. So I had that for a long time, but that was just, once again, I was in denial. And I would
Mm-hmm.
say, oh, maybe it's my gallbladder. It was everything except diabetes, right?
Wow.
And it was everything that had nothing to do that I weighed 300 and over 300 pounds.
Gotcha.
Because once again, I had convinced myself that I was just so in denial. I had convinced myself that I was a healthy 315 pounds. I was
Gotcha.
I was very braggadocious and arrogant that I weighed more than football players. My wife and I would go to an NFL game, and I was bigger than most of the people that were on the field.
Yeah.
And I thought that was something to be proud of. I was like, damn, he only weighs 250. He only weighs 300. And because I'm tall, I was the same height as some of these guys. I was bigger
Gotcha.
than the linebackers that were
And you were
playing
bigger than
football.
them.
I was
Gotcha.
bigger than them. So to
Mm-hmm.
me, they were little guys. And that boosted my ego because I'm bigger than
Nice.
most of the NFL linebackers, taller
Gotcha.
and bigger than they are.
And
Not as
bigger.
muscular, but weight wise, I make them look small.
Gotcha.
So instead of instead of working my way out of denial, I was just convinced that I was a big dude, and I had completely
You were
accepted.
rationalizing. You
I
were
was,
rationalizing.
I
Yeah,
was,
you're
I had
rationalizing
a
it.
bad, I was, and in the liver, that
Yeah.
was that was a dead giveaway. That was a dead giveaway. The fatty liver, that was a dead giveaway. And I was very fortunate because they found that in the blood work, and my doctor said you need to go see a liver specialist. And I
Uh-huh.
went to see a liver specialist, and she said, "Well, your doctor is kind of extreme because your levels are elevated, but where they are is really low as far as the progression of the
Mhm.
disease." And this is important for people to know. She said that with liver disease, the liver is a
Uh-huh.
unique organ that can
Uh-huh.
regenerate itself and can heal itself
Right.
if you do what you're supposed to do. And when she told me that, I said, well, then that was just all I needed to hear as far
Game
as my
over.
liver. And
Yeah.
I just made up my mind that I wasn't, and I haven't had any liver pain in months now. And my readings, I test my blood every day. I haven't had an elevated abnormal blood sugar level for months.
So let
So
me ask you this, based on
mhm,
what you just said. So based on what you just said, you're saying that you haven't experienced any of the symptoms that were negative since you've been on this protocol.
absolutely. About 3 weeks, 2 weeks after the protocol, I started testing my blood sugar. I got a meter, and everything within in the first 2 weeks were pretty intense. I stayed away from as many carbs as I possibly could. Well, a lot of people
Right.
would say it's a keto diet, but I
Uh-huh.
didn't want to. I didn't want to put a label on it, so I stayed away from all sugars, right? Whether they be sugar in fruits, and what I found is a lot of people overdo the sugars in fruit because it's fruit, they think it's healthy. So
Right.
they'll eat 7 oranges and all this other fruit that still has a lot of sugar in it. So I
Right.
stayed away from all of that, and I really kept my caloric uh, my calories low. And one of the good things about that is I everything I put in my mouth, it goes against my 800 calories.
Gotcha.
Everything.
So
So
you
if it's
counted against that.
an orange is 45 to 49 calories, right?
Gotcha.
So
Gotcha.
that counts. So everything counts. And what I've noticed with people is they'll eat 2,000 calories worth of fruit, and they don't understand that that fruit has sugar too. And that's why they
Mm-hmm.
never lose any weight, because they're not running a deficit, they're not exercising. And a lot
Gotcha.
of times when you're exercising your fat, you have a tendency to injure yourself with, you're too heavy for your joints.
Yeah.
So I just the first couple of months, I was really very adamant about letting go of all sugar. All
Gotcha.
sugar. All sugar had to go. Sugar was evil.
So, well, that's good because I know that there's some fruit that have lower glycemic index and some that
Absolutely.
have higher. So I know the ones that will actually spike my sugar and the ones that actually don't. So
Absolutely.
I kind of, berries for me are definitely much better than things like pineapple or mango or some apples, cherries, that kind of thing, and grapes that are higher in sugar. So I can get away with raspberries and I can get away with blackberries and I can get away with blueberries and things like that. So there are some levels of sugars in all fruit, yes, but some have lower, much lower
Absolutely.
than others.
Absolutely.
So
And you
let me
have to
ask
know
you,
that if you're gonna if you're
if
gonna
you're
if
gonna,
you're gonna
exactly.
eat fruit. And see, one of the things I did, and this is one of the things that got me kicked out of that group, is I would
You
go
got
into
kicked
that
out of
group.
the group? Which group?
They kicked
Diabetes?
me out of that group where you found me. They kicked me out
Why?
because I was saying things that was contrary to what the professionals say, right?
Wow.
And I had like 1,000 comments and likes in like 2 hours. So people
Wow.
were really listening to the message, and some of the things that I would say would be contrary to popular belief. So I would
Wow.
tell people, you probably need to slow down on your fruit, and people aren't going to tell you that. And
Right.
then I would explain to them, fruit has sugar too to your body. So I'm not
Right.
saying to get away from fruit. I'm saying to know what you're
Slow
eating.
down. Yeah, just slow it down.
Exactly. So what
Mhm.
people would take that as, this dude is saying fruit is bad for you. So some of the things that work for me, other people would say, well, you're too extreme. You're gonna injure yourself because you're losing muscle mass, or you're losing too much weight. It's not a healthy
Right.
way to do it. And
Right.
that's counter to what professionals will tell
Popular.
you, and
Gotcha.
so-called professionals. But my whole thing was this: if you're telling me that by losing weight I can control my diabetes, to me the emphasis becomes, let me make weight my number one priority, and then
Gotcha. And
everything else will work.
I get where you're coming from. And that's why it worked for you so quickly.
Mhm,
So
mhm.
the other question I have for you then is this only basically took you what, 4 months?
It took me 3 months, a little bit less than 3.5 months.
Wow. To lose 90 pounds?
I lost about 82 pounds.
Wow. That is what was like shocking to me. That
Mhm.
so when you were that regimented about it, when you were that on it in terms of the deficit and knowing your numbers and being able to write down what how much calories this particular food has, how much you need to put in your body, how much you need to be able to kind of expend from your body, when you were able to do that, the weight just started coming off. And you
Oh, it
said
just
you did
came off.
without
It
exercise until the
No
last month?
exercise. Yeah, and that's another thing. So that's another reason I told that I kicked out that group, is because I was telling people, don't exercise for the first month. Don't fast, caloric restriction, don't do any physical activities the first two
Right.
months. And
Uh-huh.
the weight's just going to drop off. As long as you are serious and committed to the caloric restriction, the
Got
weight
it.
is going to drop off. So each
Wow.
pound is 3,500 calories. If
Gotcha.
you At 800 pounds, that's 7,000 calorie deficit, right? A week. So you're going to lose 2 pounds a week just by doing that. That's
Right.
8 pounds a month. That's 100 pounds a year. So I just went to the extreme. People say I'm extreme. I said I need to really hit it hard, because I need to get this weight off of me so that I can get rid of this liver disease, and I can get
Mm-hmm.
rid of this diabetes. And
Gotcha.
that's one of the reasons why they expelled me from that group, because I was saying some things that are contrary to popular belief.
Okay.
In the first week I lost almost 20 pounds,
Gotcha. In the
because
very first week alone.
I got off, because but this is important. I weighed 300, almost 300 pounds. So there was a lot of weight to lose. And
Right.
I was taking in so much sugar that I think it was a shock to my body. Because, like I said, I was literally, and I'm not exaggerating, half of my cup was coffee cream.
Uh-huh.
Half.
Wow.
half a mile. So every 3 days, I was buying a new, not a small coffee crate, a large,
The big one. The big
the
one.
big one, the big one,
Wow.
every 3 days. So I went from that to not eating any sugar whatsoever.
You went cold turkey.
I did it the same way I did when I stopped drinking, and I had to.
So, what advice would you give to people who are in your position, who have been given the diagnosis, who probably are overweight? What advice would you give them? Maybe they won't do exactly what you did, but what would you say initially that they would need to do in order to be successful?
Okay, so once again, this is not medical advice. I'm just sharing with you what worked for me.
Yep.
I think the most important thing to do is to recognize where you're at in your disease
Right.
and ask yourself a question. Is this something that I want to live the rest of my life with? If
Mm,
that, and you really have to think about it, if that answer to that question is no, then you have to approach it accordingly. And
gotcha.
accordingly means concentrating on the weights, right?
Gotcha.
And doing some things that you're naturally not going to want to do because and this, I'm speaking generally, most people with diabetes too are obese.
Right.
So whatever got you obese is a behavior. And
Right.
I think 99.9% of people would say, well, I don't want to live the rest of my life with diabetes. I don't want to go down that road. Well, then
Right.
you have to act accordingly. And you have to stop doing the things that got you to being obese in the first
In
place.
the first
And
place.
you have to really be serious about that. And what I typically do, I'm working with a small group of people to see if we can replicate this.
Uh
And what
huh.
I do, I told a young lady last night who's 72. I said, if you want to see your granddaughter graduate in 7 years, you need to get yourself in order because if not, you may not be here. And if you
Wow.
are here, if you don't change, you're gonna be in a world of hurt because she had a very high A1C and she's
Yeah.
72, 73 years old. That she's going into it backwards. As she gets
Oh, they
older,
finished with you.
her diabetes, her numbers are getting worse. So I was
Gotcha.
very graphic with her and saying, you have to make a decision. This is a decision time. If you really want to do this, you're lucky because you have support from your family. If you're BSing with this, then it's not going to work for you. And you're going to
Exactly.
probably, and you're going to, there's a good chance at your age, you won't be around in 7 years
So
because
then you're looking
diabetes is
for,
quick.
okay, sorry, not to cut you off. So you're
Yep.
looking for in this group that you're working with now. So you're doing a
Mhm.
group that you're managing now. Are you managing this group with their
I'm
weight? Is
managing
that
a group of small friends that I've had for the past several years that I
okay?
introduced them to trading and investing. So I want to see if this is something that can be replicated and see the numbers. So I want to see there's about 30 people in this group, and I want to see how many of them can can really follow through because it's only 3 months. And because it's only 3 months, I think I'll have more success with the number of people who complete it, right? I want to see as many people as possible get healthy, and I want to see how many people can accept the challenge and follow through and get that weight down to where diabetes is no longer a concern.
Gotcha. So are you looking for a certain type of person besides the weight? Are you looking for
Mhm.
like the mindset? Or are you looking for people that are disciplined? Are you looking for people that are,
That's a
addicted
great question.
personality? What are
That's a
you
great
looking
question.
to be successful?
It's a really good question. What I look for in people, I don't target people, who they talk a big game, but then
Yeah,
when it comes down to the nitty gritty, they sort of fall to the wayside. So I give
yeah,
everybody an opportunity, right? Because what I found is it's the person that you think isn't going to do it who does it, and
does
it's the
it.
person who you think is going to do it who doesn't. And
Right.
because I was so stuck in denial with my obesity, I understand, right?
Yeah.
And and so I like to give everyone that opportunity, and I like to believe in everyone and give everyone the benefit of the doubt and
Uh-huh.
work through that process of the denial and trying to rationalize everything with a
Hmm.
twist of this can really get nasty if you don't get control of it. And by
Got it.
nasty, I mean it's not just death. They can start chopping off your feet. You can go
Yeah.
blind. You
Yeah.
can literally go blind.
Yeah.
And I think I expressed to you in that group, that helped to motivate me because some of the people in that group were having severe
Severe
complications from diabetes.
complications. Well,
Severe,
I can attest to that.
yeah, yeah. So you don't want that. So I like to give everybody the benefit of the doubt, and then I like to help them walk through that process as
Hmm.
being a person who was 300 pounds uh, just just 3 months ago, really 3.5 months ago.
I mean,
So
just look at you now. I really want to show the video
mhm.
of you when you're at your heaviest,
No,
so that
I've
they
got
can.
some pictures. Listen, I've got some pictures that are embarrassing.
Well, the bottom line is, I think people really need to see. I think that, like you said, the visual, the power of visualization, it's powerful. And I think people really need to see what you have been able to accomplish in 3.5 months. It's just, again, it's nothing short of amazing. So, what I want to do, I'm going to see if I can, I didn't have it ready, but I'm going to see if I can find it right now and pull it up. I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to
Mhm.
go ahead and find that because I think people need to see it. I really think they need to see
I don't know if I
what
sent you the newest one of the 38 pants, but I just did
you
another one
showed
where I
me.
got
The last one that you sent me was the one where you were shopping,
mhm.
and you were in the changing room, and you were showing me what the space between the
Yeah.
waist.
I'm actually smaller than that now. I'm actually in the 36 now. So
Are
I
you
have
kidding?
another one where I've actually lost even more weight than that first one I sent you. So now I'm at
Wow.
36. I'll send that
So,
to you
well,
now too.
yeah, you might have to send it to me so I can actually put that into that, for Monday, because what I'm going to show them now is the one that I got before, and it's still significant, but I
Right.
think, I think it's just interesting to see what you were then and what you are now. So I'm going to see if I can pull that up really quickly. Let's see. I am going to see if I can pull that up really quickly. Um, I've got the wrong thing up right now, so let me just pull up. Oh, it was in Facebook. What am I doing? I need to pull it up in Facebook. That's where I posted it. So I'm gonna pull it up in Facebook really quickly and see if we can show them exactly what you did. Now, it was in the group that I posted it, so I'm gonna go to my group and show them the video.
Okay.
And let's see, events right here. I do believe so. No, I need to get it ready because you know what? It's in
Okay,
the
that's fine.
actual comments. It's actually in the comments,
Okay.
and so I need to really find it there because
Okay.
that's where it's located. So if I
And I
go back,
sent I sent you the newest one to your Facebook Messenger too. That's the
send it
35
to the
kilograms.
messenger just
Yeah,
now.
I sent you two pictures. One at where I weighed like 207, and then one where I weighed 289. And I sent you
Okay, so this
the
one right
video
here.
where I got 36.
Can you see this right now, or can you see the messenger one now, or not?
I can't see it on my screen, no.
Okay, so let me do this. I'm gonna stop sharing
Okay.
and then pull up this one. All right, so there. So can
Yeah.
you see that now?
Yes, yeah, I can.
So what size were you in this picture?
I'm about 206 right there. That's a waist size 36.
And
That
then
right
this,
there, that's waist size 48. Now, this picture on the right was from last year, but I didn't lose any weight. I was that same weight, maybe a little bit bigger
uh-huh,
in September.
uh-huh.
Yeah.
That when you said that to me, I was like, wow. Because
Yeah.
I think you were shopping at that point and you were just
Yeah. Yeah.
trying
The
on
first one
jeans.
I sent you was 38. So I was
Yeah.
about 211 or 209. This one
Yep.
is 36, weighs 36. And
And
I
then
want to
two.
make sure that your people understand that the thing about losing weight is you don't do it for vanity reasons. You do it because you want to get healthy. And
Healthy.
and waist size and everything else and getting into new clothes and smaller clothes is just a byproduct of losing the weight.
Right. Of the
Yeah.
losing the weight. Absolutely. So, any last parting words that you would like to leave with the audience? Because I'm sure that this is going to impact so many people. I mean, just looking, you say visualization is very powerful. It really
Hmm.
is. And that's what kind of drew me to your art, to your post when you
Hmm.
posted it. I was like, he did that in what? How much time?
Pretty
And
quickly.
and
Yeah.
then your A1C and your glucose levels and the weight, you were just on it.
I
Well,
just didn't want to be part of that process of always going back and forth to the hospital.
exactly.
I didn't want to take any medicine because most medicines have a side effect. So I
Right.
really wanted to just get it over with. And that's why I did it in such a way that it only took 3.5 months. And like I said, I still got about 15 pounds to go. Uh,
Uh-huh. And you're working on that, I'm sure.
yeah, I'm working on that. And I'm doing a little exercise now. I walk now,
Uh-huh.
and to bring to for my calories and things like that. But what I would like to leave everyone with is what I've noticed is that the psychology of obesity is different than anything I've ever experienced, and I'm talking about that from a firsthand experience.
Uh-huh.
Like I said earlier, when I had a drinking problem, I had no problem telling people the being honest about my drinking problem. But with my weight, I think there was some shame associated with that and
Mm.
embarrassment. And
There's a
that
lot of stigma
a lot
associated.
of self stigma that we put on ourselves. And then
There
what
is.
happens is because we've been told that it's hard to do things and do this and eat lettuce and this and that. And we
Uh-huh.
haven't really been told what I feel are some creative ways to lose the weight. We try and then we fail, and that just compounds that stigma that we put on ourselves.
I'm
And
glad you said
then,
that. I'm glad you said
yeah,
that, Thomas,
it's
because what
true.
I found is that exactly what you just said. When I
Hmm.
started with my being able to control my diabetes, I
Hmm.
hated salads. Couldn't stand them. I thought it
Hmm.
was rabbit food. But
Hmm.
then I said to myself, well, if I need to get control of this and I need to eat more greens and I need to eat more salads
Hmm.
and I need to eat more veggies, I'm going to have to create some things that I like to put in my salads so I could enjoy
Absolutely.
them. And now here's what happened. What happened was salads became my signature thing. And when I was going to the ministers' meeting or a women's meeting or a party, everybody said, "Oh, put Janice down for a salad." They didn't even ask me anymore
Yeah.
because they knew that my salads were so good, and they also
Hmm.
enjoyed. They were different, and they were creative, and so people never even asked. They just said, "Oh, she's going to bring a salad," and they just put
Yeah.
me down for that because I created things that I liked, and then just started to kind of add different things like chopped dates or
Yeah.
maybe dried apricots or something like that, and just tried different things and started putting together salads that they became my signature thing. So what you said just then, people don't know how to be creative, so that they don't feel like they're depriving themselves, that they can still enjoy good food. They just need to now modify it.
What you did was you trained yourself and then you trained everyone else around you. And what I
Yep.
mean by that is you trained yourself to stop looking at salads the way that you looked at salads before. And
Yep.
then by doing that, that had an effect on everybody around you. And then
It
you
did.
became known as a salad lady. And everyone found out how delicious your salads were. And so, and obese people need to recognize this, that they're in control of how other people see them. And I
Yeah.
want people to understand that weight, and two things are transitory, which simply means they come and go:
Mm-hmm.
money and
Yeah.
weight,
And wait.
right?
She
And
does.
you could be, this is for me, it's literal. You can be 300 pounds today and in 3 months be 200 pounds. That's a third of your body weight. You could
Exactly.
be struggling with money today and in 3 months have more money than you know what to do with. That's called transitory. And certain things don't don't warrant a lot of the emotions that we attach to them because they're transitory, because they can be changed. And weight is one of those things. So the emotional stigma that we put on ourselves first, we have to learn to emotionally detach from the weight that we're carrying and then concentrate on losing that weight. And in that
Gotcha.
process, that's when you truly understand how transitory that weight is. And then it starts to lose some of the control and power that it
That
has
it
over
has
you.
on you. Well, it
And then you
sounds
just
like to
drop the
me,
weight.
Thomas, it sounds like we're going to have to get you back on my podcast, not my live, but my podcast that I'm starting soon, because I want to know how you can apply that same mindset to the money aspect,
Mhm,
because there's a lot of people that are living in this kind of lack mentality and
mhm,
poor mentality, and
mhm,
need to kind of apply some of those same principles to that
mhm.
thinking so that they can change their whole perspective on how they view money.
Absolutely.
And so that
Absolutely.
sounds like something
Absolutely.
that we need to explore a little bit further in my podcast.
Mhm.
So
Absolutely.
stay tuned for that, because I'm sure that would be some really interesting revelations that you'd be able to give us in terms of that.
The confidence from losing weight carries over into everything. And when I tell obese people, and I was morbidly obese, my BMI is
Uh-huh.
almost 40. I was 100 pounds overweight.
Wow.
So if you're obese right now, you don't understand the gift that you have by being obese. Because now I'm sort of, I know that I've controlled myself on this podcast, but I trade for a living. So that's what I do.
Uh-huh.
But if I wanted to, and if I had the time, and I'm not old, but I'm not young either,
Uh-huh.
the amount of weight that I've lost, the system that I've created could
Mm-hmm.
put more money in my pocket by helping other people than I could ever spend,
You better
because
get
I'm
to it.
committed to that, right?
You
I'm
better get
serious
to it.
about that. So every obese person that's walking around,
Uh-huh.
if they're committed to getting healthy, that by itself will create a revenue stream that's so large that it'll free them from ever having to have a job. And
Wow.
that's called being in service of others. As
Yes.
long as you're in service of others and you're committed and you're
Yep.
doing it for the right reason,
Yep.
the ancestor, God, whomever it is you look at, will
Right.
provide for you
Provide for
as
you.
long as you're helping other people.
I
So if
love
you're
it.
obese and you can commit yourself to getting healthy and you're
Yep.
successful, and once you're successful, that energy will spill out like the sun, and
Wow.
it'll bring warmth to people, just like you found me. Everybody will find someone and say, if he can do it, I can do
I can do
it. And
it.
as long
Absolutely.
as you commit yourself to supporting those people, you asked me earlier, who do I look for? And I told you, I look for everybody because I give everybody the benefit of the doubt. So I don't
Mm-hmm.
restrict anyone. And
Right.
there's reasons for that. So as long as you do that, the more weight you're carrying now has a direct correlation between the money that you'll have in 3 to 6 months. And we all need to do that because it's the best money a person could spend is getting healthy. There's no other better investment than getting healthy,
You
period.
said a powerful word right there. That was a powerful testimony right
True.
there. And your whole story was a testimony. So I really want to just let my audience know that really, really, truly grateful that you said yes when I reached out to you,
Thank you.
because your story blew me away when I was reading it. And I was like, and I saw the pictures and I was like, oh my God, I gotta reach out to this guy. So I just know that your story is going to reach and impact a lot of lives. And
I hope
because
so.
of that, I'm just grateful that you said yes. And
Thank you.
I would love to see you come back again just to kind of follow your progress and see where you
Okay.
are. And
Yeah,
then when the
absolutely.
podcast happens, we're going to get you back on there.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All
And
right?
I want everyone in parting to know that you can do it. Don't
Yes.
don't give up.
Don't give up.
Don't give up.
Don't give up. So we want to thank James for being here today, and I thank you for for tuning in to today's live. And James, thank you so much
You're
for
very
telling your
welcome. Thank you
story.
so much for
Thank you.
having me, and thanks for reaching out. And like I said, normally I don't do this because I like my free time, and that's one of the
I
reasons I
know it.
lost the weight. But I
I know
really
it.
want to help people, and you reached out, and I said, sure, I'll do it. And then you reached out and said, well, can we do a run? I'm like, man, I didn't sign up for this. But then I said, if this is what it takes to reach people, then I'm down. And so here we are.
Well, I've only recently started doing that, James, only because a
That's
couple
okay.
people didn't show. But
It makes
hey,
sense. It's professional. It's professional.
yeah. All right, James. Thank you so much. I'm going to give you back your day.
Absolutely, absolutely.
All right, then. You have a good one.
You too. So before you go, I know this is a dry run. So what
Uh-huh.
time is it? What time is the thing on Monday again?
So it's supposed to be 11 o'clock Central. So that will be 12
Okay.
o'clock. Are you in Eastern
Yeah.
time? So it's
Let's
going to
do
be 12.
12 o'clock. Let's do 12 o'clock so I can get a couple hours of trading in. So 12 o'clock Eastern time, which will be 11 o'clock your, is that 11 o'clock?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
11 o'clock your time. And
Yep. That's my
I'll set
noon
aside
time.
a couple hours for you.
Okay. No problem. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
I'll see you then.
All right. Cheers.
Bye bye. Cheers. All right. Let me stop sharing. All right.